This is a rich time right now. There are people all over the world of Jewish and Christian backgrounds who are celebrating Holy Week. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, Passover began on Friday evening, and I'm going to get to that in a moment. And today is Palm Sunday, which actually has very deep metaphorical, metaphysical, and symbolic meaning for us here in our New Thought teaching. And really, both of these ancient traditions teach us the extraordinary power of our resiliency and strength to overcome difficulty, and the gift of the felt experience of oneness. So, speaking of oneness, to illustrate this, if you're willing, I would like to actually start us off by guiding you in a short process. Are you willing? Yes? Okay, great. Those of you at home, please, I invite everyone to just take an easy breath in and close your eyes. Or if you're more comfortable, you can just gaze down, maybe at a 45-degree angle at a fixed spot right in front of you with soft lids, if that's more comfortable for you. Just taking a deep, easy breath. And a nice, long, gentle exhale. Letting go of anything that may be on your mind. Just allowing yourself to be fully present here now. So I'm going to invite us to start with the alarm that may have woken you up this morning. This is fun, remember? Think for a moment in your mind's eye of the person who first invented the idea of an alarm clock, leading us over time to modern day technology. Many of us may have used an alarm on our phone this morning to wake up, maybe. And just consider all of the hands that made the individual parts that created your alarm this morning. And now think about all of the people who helped to make the pajamas or the clothing you woke up wearing this morning, or maybe you put on a robe or a sweater. Think about all of those people. And now I invite you to reflect on the cup of tea or the coffee you may have enjoyed. Maybe you put some milk or cream or almond milk into that cup. Just think of all the loving hands who helped bring that to you this morning. If you had some, consider the sweetener or sugar or stevia or honey that you may have put in it, and the paper that the sweetener may have been wrapped in, or the container of the honey or of the milk. Or if you just had a big glass of water, consider all of the people it took to make that glass or that mug that you used. The person who drove it to the store, and the person who unpacked it and put it on the shelf. And then let's say you bought that glass or that mug at a store. Think about the person who rang you up at the cash register, or the person who delivered it to your home. All of the ways that just this morning alone you have been supported by and connected to so many different people. We are so deeply connected to each other. Every single thing you have is connected to another person you don't yet know. Moving on in your day, let's say that you decide to paint something. Or it's a beautiful day, maybe you want to plant in a garden or maybe bake something. Gently consider all of the people it will take to support you in those seemingly independent tasks. Energetically be with those who made the paper you might paint on, the folks who created the paints and the paintbrushes you may use, or the people who gathered the seeds you might plant, and those who made the small packets that hold those seeds. Consider the work it takes to make and bring you the fertilizer you might put in the garden's soil. And the next time you bake something, all of the seemingly simple ingredients you use. Reflect for a moment here on the people who grew those ingredients, who packaged them for you, who created the mixing bowl you use, the spatula, the oven you bake it in, and on and on and on and on. Maybe place your hand on your heart if that feels comfortable, and give a silent thank you to all of your sisters, brothers, and siblings around this beautiful world of ours who contribute in their own small way to your life and to our world. And when you are ready, please gently return to the room and open your eyes. In her stunning book, The Amen Effect, Ancient Wisdom to Mend Our Broken Hearts and World, Rabbi Sharon Brous wrote, "The gift that God gave humanity from the start was the gift of one another." The gift that God gave humanity from the start was the gift of one another. You know, it's so easy right now to feel all of the separation and the divisiveness that is happening in our country. And so the next time you might feel that divisiveness, or perhaps you might feel alone, I invite you to just simply look around. Look at any item near you, anything, however big or small, and let yourself remember just how many people you are actually, in reality, connected to. As people on a spiritual path who are committed to remembering our oneness, who are dedicated to participating in the healing of our one human family, this is an easy way that you can just throughout your week, because I'll tell you, this has been helping me. I bring you what I practice, and this has been helping me to remember my interconnection with everyone. And you know, I felt this deep connection last weekend on Saturday, April 5th, the National Day of Action March. We gathered here at NTCSL early, and we made signs, and we joined each other at the march, and it was just an extraordinary experience filled with love and filled with active hope and the determination together to save our democracy. And there were folks all over Oregon, and many here who were all over in all different kinds of places, marching and gathering, many people who had never participated in anything like this before. And I can tell you that it was actually a very spiritual experience. Anybody who is there or who have seen those images, can you feel the spirit happening in that experience? Oh my goodness. Because there was a felt sense of belonging. There was a felt sense of hope. There was a felt sense of the spiritual truth about how connected and interconnected we all truly are. And of the estimated 3.5 million Americans who marched on April 5th, yes, woo, and the thousands and thousands and thousands of people who marched internationally to support us in their own allyship of us and what we are going through, there was not one single act of violence. Not one. Not one. Our solidarity is our divine power, and we are going to keep going together. Are you with me? Yes. So we're going to be having another National Day of Action in May. Please stay tuned for that. We're about all of it here. And for those of you who may be new or newish, just know today we happen to be having a new member orientation where you can learn all the things that we're doing. It's for about an hour and 15 minutes. Bless you, love. It's for about an hour and 15 minutes or so. After service, starting at 12:30 in the Learning Center. I really invite you to come in, especially if you've been here for a while and you know there's more happening and you want to get the scoop. I invite you personally to that. So, why am I talking about the National Day of Action on Palm Sunday? Why would I do that? Because there are so many parallels and opportunities to do one of my favorite things in the world, which is to connect the dots between the wisdom of the ancient world and the infinite possibility of our current world. So there is a very little known piece of theological interpretation and historical reconstruction of the story of Palm Sunday that isn't talked very much about, and I'm going to get to that in a moment. But I want to first invite you all, and those of you at home, as I talk about this story, I invite you to consider Jesus of Nazareth as the representation of light. In this story, Jesus is representing for us in our New Thought teaching spiritual truth and light-filled peace. So, let me set the scene for those of you who are not familiar with this story. Historically, according to Eastern tradition, when a king entered a city, he always entered on a horse, a big horse, in fact, which was at the time the custom. It was a show of strength and power. It also happened to stand for war. So it was also a way to assert aggression. However, when Jesus of Nazareth, representing spiritual truth and light and peace, entered Jerusalem, as the story goes, unlike this traditional custom of the king entering in on a horse, which was centered in domination and intimidation, Jesus chose to ride into town on a donkey. Oh, yes, he did. Oh, yes, he did. Why a donkey? Because in the ancient world, the donkey represented humility and gentleness and peace. It was a radical decision. And can you imagine for the folks back then, having heard already, like his reputation preceded him, for sure. And they'd already heard all about the healings that he'd done and the miracles that he had been performing all over the place, not to mention a 550-year-old-ish prophecy from the ancient book Zechariah in the Hebrew Bible, which spoke of the next Messiah riding into town on a donkey, representing peace. Can you imagine the people? Can you imagine? 550 years is a really long time. And here he comes. He comes into town, and they are thrilled. They are so excited. They get palms. That's why we call it Palm Sunday in the ancient world. Palms represented wisdom and peace and eternal life and eternal love. And they laid them down at his feet as he entered town, and there were shouts of Hosanna, which meant God saves or helps or supports. So different from a king coming in on his horse. But I have to tell you, my favorite part of this particular story is found in only one of the Gospels, in Matthew, where it is written there that in this celebration of Jesus of Nazareth coming into Jerusalem on his donkey, it was the children in the temple area that were shouting the loudest, like unabashedly, fearlessly. They were shouting because they saw the truth. They saw the representation of peace. They saw the infinite potentiality. And what's so funny to me is that the wise priests and scribes of the time were irritated by these children, by these kids, by these youth raising their voices. Does this sound familiar at all? And they went to Jesus and they said, Jesus, the kids, they're just being like a little over the top. They're just being way too loud. Can you tell them to be quiet? And Jesus said, absolutely not. He refused. He refused to silence the kids. Why? Because they were speaking truth. And in that moment, across millennia, Jesus, representing spiritual truth, is teaching us to pay attention to the youth of our time. Think about all of the college kids on the campuses standing for truth fearlessly and unabashedly. Now, the lesser known part of this story I find pretty darn cool. It is assumed by some historians and theologians that I greatly respect that because it was Passover, a Jewish holiday which drew large crowds, the Roman governor of Judea, Pontius Pilate, yep, that guy, would have obviously entered Jerusalem during the Passover celebrations, but he entered, however, on his horse to enforce order, to assert Roman authority over the Jewish people, especially given that the themes of Passover, being liberation and freedom, which I'll talk about in a moment, could have potentially inspired resistance against Roman rule. Several theologians posit that there were most likely two very different processions into Jerusalem. One of anger and force, the other of love and joy. One rooted in authoritarian control and abuse of power, and the other in humility and advocacy for the most vulnerable. One in fear and the other in love. Approximately 2,000 years later, we see something quite similar playing out in real time. Here's the thing. Every great story gives us an opportunity to see ourselves in it. And so, recognizing that there were polarities of fear and love, of abuse of power and gentle strength happening simultaneously, we are reminded that we are always at choice of which procession, if you will, we are going to stand up for. And making this even more personal for each one of us, because we understand that there will be peace in the world when there is peace within us. The question then becomes, what areas of my own life do I tend to show up on that horse? Be gentle with yourself. As Ernest Holmes said, awareness is curative. What areas of my own life do I tend to show up on that horse, armored, ready for a fight? And what areas of my life do I show up on that gentle donkey representing peace, so that I can engage in the lifelong work of peace building? The beloved Vietnamese Zen Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh said, "Each moment is a chance for us to make peace with the world, to make peace possible for the world, to make happiness possible for the world." So in other words, even in the divisiveness, and especially in the divisiveness, we are called to be harbingers of peace within ourselves, in our families, in our communities, and in the outer world, the larger world. We're always at choice. Always at choice. And one of the things that I will share with you is, if you recognize an area in your life where you tend to put yourself on that war horse, I invite you to go back to the sweet practice of remembering all the ways we humans are interconnected. It will help soften those edges. It will help connect those dots. Because whatever it is that you are armoring yourself up for, you are showing up defended. And when we show up defended, we cannot bring peace. We are of no use. It doesn't mean we don't get angry. That's different. But showing up defended, as we would say in Ireland, you've already lost the plot. Good luck with that. So just notice gently. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, Passover is happening. And again, I will say it is just such a significant Jewish holiday, and it commemorates the liberation of the Jewish people from slavery, and it symbolizes freedom and redemption, and it's celebrated with the Seder meal, which includes symbolic foods and readings, which we shared on Friday evening here at NTCSL. And thank you again, Joan Lubar, for bringing that to us. What a blessing, and for leading that for us. It's just beautiful. And I love to go each year. And Joan does something in the Haggadah. Haggadah, by the way, is the Hebrew root word of that. It just means to tell. And it's the text that is used during the Passover Seder that tells the story of the Exodus from Egypt. And Joan includes something each year. And you and I have not yet talked about this, Joan. You're learning this in this moment in real time. Joan includes something in the Haggadah that I absolutely love. Now, in some progressive Jewish communities, on the center of the table, on the Seder plate, there's a Seder plate at the center of the table, there is a perfect, bright, beautiful orange. Now, you will not find a perfect, bright, beautiful orange on the Seder plate in a conservative or more traditional community. So what's up with the orange? When a woman asked an Orthodox rabbi When will a woman be able to become a rabbi? He answered, there will be a woman rabbi when there is an orange on the Seder plate. I so relate to this story. All right. In the past few years, I have had the joy of experiencing this moment in our Seder, and I'm always reminded of an incredible opportunity and experience that I had over 20 years ago. So I was in Los Angeles, and for this particular project, I was working behind the camera on a documentary about Judaism. And I had the great good fortune to interview the trailblazer Rabbi Laura Geller, who is, if you do not know, the third woman in the United States of America in the Reform movement to become an ordained rabbi. She was an absolute trailblazer in rabbinical school. She was one of 50 students. And I remember more than anything, the feeling tone when I interviewed her and her sharing with me her candor was that her journey was really difficult. She was not taken seriously. There was sort of an assumption by the men around her that she was, I don't know, in rabbinical school, like for her own enrichment, that she wasn't actually going to be doing anything with this incredible education. Certainly she wouldn't be working as a rabbi. That was the whole feeling tone she had throughout that experience. Well, it just so happened that Rabbi Geller became the very first woman selected through a national search to head a major metropolitan synagogue, Temple Emmanuel, and it's massive in Beverly Hills. That's where I interviewed her. So, not only that, but she served as the senior rabbi there for 22 years. She was responsible for inspiring countless women and men, and I would say non-binary folk as well. The thing that I remember the most about interviewing Rabbi Geller was that she was very clear that despite how difficult it was for her, and it was really hard, she refused to give up. She flat out refused. It wasn't an option for her. And so every year, when I get to see that orange, that bright, beautiful orange on the Seder plate, I smile to myself with great gratitude for Rabbi Geller. And I am also reminded in the same breath that we must never give up. Never. So the question then becomes, again, to make it personal, is there something in your own life that feels like an uphill battle? Or maybe you have a dream for yourself, and it just feels too big, and it would just be easier to forget about it or to give up. My love, whatever valley you find yourself in temporarily right now, or whatever mountain you are facing, whatever mountain is before you to climb, I invite you to take a deep breath and align yourself, your spirit, your heart, your mind with the loving strength of spirit, of active hope, with the energy of those kids 2,000 years ago who dared to yell Hosanna louder than anybody else, with that level of strength. Because in our modern day, what those kids would yell is love wins. And that can be your inner battle cry, whatever that dream is, whatever that thing is, whatever that hurdle is for you. Love wins. And so I invite you to stand in that spiritual truth. And just like the multitude of people that brought you, I don't know, John, you're writing in a notebook, taking notes. Great student, thank you very much, sir. Just like the multitude of people that brought you that notebook, that created that paper and that pen and the binding on your journal. Just like the people who created the phones that you're holding or are in your pocket, or if you're watching on a screen, or maybe the people who created the mug that you're sipping from or the water bottle that you have next to you. There are a multitude of angels on the seen and unseen sides of life helping you right now, giving you what you need to sustain you, giving you what you need for your greater healing. And you too, my loves, you will have a perfect, bright, beautiful orange on your Seder plate. Nelson Mandela wrote, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Ain't that the truth? It always seems impossible until it's done. So this week, if you feel alone or saddened by the division of our country, I invite you to remember all of the beautiful souls, the people that have contributed to every single item in front of you. 2, I invite you to gently notice the places within you that are showing up on that horse of war, if you will. And then I invite you to compassionately turn towards spirit, turn towards love, and consciously choose a gentle yet actually stronger path of love, of the peace builder. And finally, like Rabbi Geller, I invite you to notice where or when you may have feelings of wanting to give up, and just don't. Please, for all of us, don't. Don't give up. Visualize that perfect, bright, beautiful orange on your very own Seder plate. See yourself triumph over whatever it is that is trying to bring you down, and remember that you have a loving army of angels right here at the New Thought Center for Spiritual Living that are going to support you in every single way. We see each other in this spiritual family. We see our soul. Know that you are magnificent. You are blessed beyond belief. And we are going to get through all of this together, my loves.